Obviously the animals are one of the biggest attractions at the farm, and I was going to do a video showing every different species that we have, and as I started to do it I realised that actually it would be really nice to do a little bit more in depth of each category. So I've done a video here of the goats. This starts with our very first animal that we ever got, who was a little baby when we saw him, and then he grew into a wonderful billy goat. One of my favourites actually, and that's not just because he was named after me. We had him for a few years, and tragically he died of a bacterial infection which broke everybody's heart. He was a real character. The first animal we got on the site was this beautiful little goat called Geoffrey. When we chose him, he was a little bundle of fluff, and then a few weeks later when he arrived I found out that his name had been given as Geoffrey in honour of me. How lovely is that? And we became very good friends. He grew and was very popular, but as you can see from these pictures, he had a pair of horns on him and he was very strong. Although he was friendly, he didn't mind using those horns, and people were a little bit intimidated. This scene was just after Storm Doris, and it kind of shows his tenacity really, because he was still just in there eating. He had a couple of offspring, and this is Caramel giving birth to Amos, the first birth that we had on the site. Wonderful mother. Dandelion then gave birth to Asher a week later, about 3 days later. It's wonderful seeing new birth, just that excitement of trying to walk and then mum cleaning it up and just realising that you've got another mouth to feed, and it's just such a fantastic time. This was in March a couple of years ago. The whole process of milking and then feeding the babies again was a bit of a chore to milk all the time and every day, but feeding with a bottle was wonderful. And then just seeing these youngsters growing up, Amos and Asher running around, they were one of the highlights that we had on the farm. So full of life and fun, and it was just great. You could waste hours and hours just standing around and watching them. They love having things around to play with, like the tyre there, chairs to climb on, sit on. They're very adventurous and very playful. And of course they were around people the whole time, so they loved having people around. They weren't fazed by having company, and that's evident today. All of our goats just are very good at coming up to you and having a stroke. They've been groomed from day one, so very used to human company, having the brush on them. This is a shot of Amos and Asher with Geoffrey. Unfortunately, Geoffrey got a bacteria infection and died far too young. So we had to bring in this beautiful boy called Gorse. He was only young, but it didn't take him long to get Caramel and Arisha pregnant. And here we are. Caramel had twins, which we were not expecting. Absolutely beautiful. And Arisha had Clover. This is Clover on her way over to the enclosure for her first experience of being out with the big goats. First time on a lead and first time in with the big boys. This is Amos just coming up to welcome Clover, and very gentle, you can see. It was amazing to see the fascination of all the other goats just hanging around, seeing what was going on. Obviously now they're not quite so gentle, but at the beginning they were very aware that this was just a little baby. So much fun, just in and out of tyres, up on chairs. And then now this is all three. This is Caramel's twins, Cadbury and Cassandra, and Clover, who are still always together and always playing around together. Just gorgeous. so furry and so tactile and just so much fun. Like I said, they love climbing on things. They love just having fun, using anything that's there. You can see that cotton reel in the background, had wires all around it. Just endless hours of fun, even to today. I love that. They're like spring hares, really. Coiled springs. You can see why animals are so therapeutic. Just brilliant. Brilliant. Wouldn't you like to be that agile? And like I said, they've been so used to human company. They're not at all afraid. They're not at all suspicious. They're very good at coming up and wanting a bit of attention. And they use you as climbing apparatus as well. So this is much more modern now. These are all three of them. That's Cassandra in the middle. Cassandra up on the top, Clover in the middle, and Cadbury on the right. But they're using their feeding buckets. We've recently put this kids climbing frame in there for them, and they just climb all over it. They use it. It's interesting, and they just play. And even now that they're over a year old, they're still giving endless hours of interest and amusement. Great company and a great asset to the farm. You can see the pygmy goats in the background. We don't mix the pygmy goats with these goats because these have been dehorned. So we learnt our lesson with Geoffrey having the horns. So these have all been dehorned right from when they were very young. And so you don't mix horned animals with unhorned animals because they can do damage. So we keep the pygmies separate because they've got their horns. But you can see that the behaviours are very similar. The butting, the rearing up. This is like a parallel scene going on, isn't it, in the background? But the pygmies do that all day long. And again, just very playful, great friends. Sometimes you think it's aggressive, but it's not aggressive. They're just being playful. One jumping on the other one, and then they turn around and the other one jumps back on it. So tit for tat all the time. Great value for money. I recommend goats to anyone. So that looks aggressive, doesn't it? But it's not really. They're not really hitting each other.